right, this is your ELA lesson for today, Monday, November 18th, 2024. Your warm up for today, complete the KWL chart. So at the end of your lesson, you'll come back and do the L part. So what do you know about realistic fiction? What do you wonder about realistic fiction and realistic fiction? And then, like I said, at the very end, you're going to circle back and what did you learn about realistic fiction? So don't forget, at the very end, you're going to circle back and fill in that last part. What did you learn about realistic fiction? Once again, today is Monday, November 18th, 2024. In case you've forgotten, I am your teacher, Miss Smith. I'm your teacher. My email is csmith@lsoa.org, and my number is 682-777-9474. Our class expectations, we're going to L listen carefully so that L, everyone can learn. E, enter prepared and stay engaged. A, arrive on time. And R, be respectful of your learning and learning of everyone else. Once they said with our other recordings, I'm sorry that I had to cancel classes, but we'll see you in class tomorrow. Like I stated for your math class, thankfully the OLS was not completely messed up for ELA like it has for science and for math, but I will be adding for the remainder of this week some extra help classes if you're, especially for the Glory of Greece unit and the myths unit. That was a struggle bus, wasn't it? I'll add a couple of extra help classes for ELA and for math. If you want to come and work on those, you're more than welcome to. If you come, please know we're not going over the quiz. We will go over the lesson and any questions that you might have or that you are struggling with the lesson, but we will not go over the quiz. That if you go over the lesson, if you come and you are willing to go over the lesson, if you're willing to talk about what you were having problems with understanding in that lesson, it will help you with the quiz. So come with an open mind, come willing to ask questions and get help, and it will help you with that quiz. Alrighty, Rue. Let's get this party started. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause my recording. All right, so let's get started. Today we are going, supposed to say fiction. I am sorry. Today we're going to evaluate, I'm going to correct this really quickly, excuse me. Realistic fiction. Sorry, today we're going to evaluate the details in a realistic fiction passage to determine the main idea, make inferences using evidence, and explain the author's purpose and message. But it is Monday, so we know on a Monday, we really focus heavily on the vocabulary. So one of the things that we've been working on for a while now is really narrowing in on the central idea. We remember this central idea is like the focus or the big picture of any text that we are reading. This tells us what the author wants us to know. The central or the main idea is kind of like the heading of a newspaper or the title of a book or passage. It tells us what we're about to read, and we use key details like pictures or illustrations from the passage to help support that main idea or central idea. If we think about our main idea or our central idea like a stool, if we have those all of our supporting details, if this part is the central or main idea and the legs are our details and they're all there, when we stand on that stool, which I don't support you standing on a stool. Sit on the stool. But if all those details are there, we're not going to fall and bonk our central idea head. But if one of our details is gone, what's going to happen to us? Ow, we're going to fall and we're going to get hurt. So if one of our details is missing from the central or main idea, we're not going to fully understand what that central or main idea is. We might have a kind of like we might be able to understand what it is, but we're not going to fully understand. So we have to make sure we have a full understanding. We look at all of those details. And if we could even say like, oh, we have 3 details. But if 2 of our details are pointing to, oh, this passage is, if we think back to last week's passage about the Wampanoag, said it right this time, and the Pilgrims, life before the first Thanksgiving. And if we said all of this was talking about giving us facts, information about the Wampanoags and the Pilgrims. And then all of a sudden, like, hey, I have a fact about turkeys. I mean, yeah, it did talk about they ate turkeys. Both of them ate turkeys. But was this entire passage about turkeys? No. So was this central and main idea about turkeys? No. But yeah, they ate turkeys. But that wasn't the central or main idea. So if I throw a detail in there like turkeys say gobble gobble, that's not a key detail. Turkeys have colorful feathers, not a key detail that's going to support facts about the Wampanoag, got it right again, and the Pilgrims. So all of my details have to support what the passage is about. Now, great, the turkeys say gobble gobble. Great, the turkeys have some really pretty feathers. That would be awesome in a nonfiction passage just about turkeys. But that wasn't the purpose of last week's passage, was it? So you have to make sure your details are all supporting what the passage is about. And if all of your details are saying like the Wampanoags use the Maishoon, to fish and to travel short distances, and the Pilgrims, they came over on a boat and they worked together to learn from each other. And I mean, all of these things, and then I'm like, gobble gobble goes the turkey. One of these things is not like the other. And I'm gonna guess it's the gobble gobble goes the turkey. So make sure your details are not going to make us fall and bonk our central idea head. I said all that to say, don't fall and bonk your head. It's very painful. So, what are our academic vocabulary words? For our central idea, the focus or the big picture of the passage. Evidence. Oh, back in the passage and find your evidence, my friends. This is the information from the passage that helps to explain your evidence or ideas. Inference. This is a smart guess that you get to make based off of the clues in the passage. Your evidence. And your schema. What you already know about things. And lastly, the point of view, how the narrator or author sees and understands the events happening in a passage. With that being said, my friends, I would like to introduce you to your first passage. So sit back, relax, do not fall asleep, as Miss Smith proudly presents, drumroll please, your passage. What? Your vocabulary words. Well, yep, your passage. Together as friends, Samoset and Sarah. As I go through your past, Miss Smith doesn't need to go over vocabulary words. I should have changed the title. So these are the vocabulary words that we use for both the Wampanoag and the Pilgrims, like for the first Thanksgiving, and what we're going to be using for Samoset and Sarah. The Mishuns, I should have been saying long I. I think it's short I. It's a type of boat used by the Wampanoags for fishing and traveling on water. Native Americans, a person from the original group of people who lived in North America before the Europeans arrived. Pilgrims, a group of English settlers who arrived in America on the Mayflower in 1620 seeking a new life. And Weechu, a round home made from trees and covered with grass or bark used by the Wampanoags. With that being said, once again, Miss Smith proudly presents Together as Friends, Samoset and Sarah. So sit back, relax. As I am reading, normally you would be following along. We would stop, ask questions. Because I cannot hear your answers. Your questions will be answered tomorrow in class, asked tomorrow in class. What I need you to do is I need you to highlight your vocabulary words. I will know if you didn't. That's right, it's on Draught. So, in 1621, a young Native American boy named Samoset and a Pilgrim girl named Sarah both lived near the eastern coast, where the Wampanoag tribe had long survived. Samoset's family lived in a weechu, a cozy round home made of trees and covered with bark, which they moved to warmer spots in the winter and cooler ones in the summer. Sarah, on the other hand, lived in a wooden house with a tall slanted roof. Her family had sailed over on the Mayflower, and life in America was very different from what she had known back in England. One crisp fall morning, Samoset and Sarah met near a small river where he was fishing in his mishoon, a wooden boat he helped carve. Curious about each other's ways, they began talking and discovered they had much to learn from each other. Samoset showed Sarah how to gather plants safely and talked about how his family had hunted deer and turkey. Our stew has lots of things from the forest, he said proudly. Sarah, amazed, shared how her mother made cornbread and puddings with ingredients from their garden. She even promised to bring him a small loaf the next time. Before we go any further, I found one word in here that I really just want to stop and go back and investigate because it's not a word that we had on our vocabulary list, but it is a really interesting word. I don't know if you guys have recognized this word, and while you guys are recognizing words, you should be recognizing your vocabulary words, but the word I see is curious. Curious about each other's ways. What do you think that means? It's a very interesting word, curious. Curious about each other's ways. They began talking and discovered they had much to learn from each other. When you're curious, they began talking. The clues are telling me that the more, so I'm going to read that paragraph again. Samoset and Sarah met near a small river where he was fishing from his mishoon on a wooden boat. Curious about each other's ways, they began talking. So they talked and they talked some more. And the more they talked, the more they became curious. The more they became, the more they were like, wait, you did this? What? No. Wow. You do that? I want to try that stew. I want to try your cornbread and pudding. more they talked, the more curious or the more interested they became in each other. So curious is just like they wanted to find out more and more from each other. They just wanted to talk more with each other. They wanted to find more out. They find out more about each other. Have you ever had maybe a friend, like the more you got to know that friend, you're like, I want to know more about you. I definitely have. When at the beginning of the year, when I started to find out about you got each one of you, I'm like, oh, that is so cool. I want to find out more about each of you. I become curious. I become interested in the things you tell me, and I want to know more about you. That's how Samoset and Sarah were about each other. As they told each other interesting facts about their lives, they wanted to know more. And the more they knew, they were like, oh, this is going to be my friend. I want to know more. Because they are pretty interesting. And this was before the word cool, awesome, great was really, well, not really around, before it was around, but that, like, I don't know what words were around for like cool, awesome, and great, but I'm sure there was an amazing word for that, but maybe amazing. Let's keep going. On one of their visits, Samoset noticed that Sarah wore many layers of warm clothing, unlike his lighter deerskin clothes. Do you wear that to stay warm? He asked. Sarah nodded, realizing Samoset might not have enough layers for the cold winter ahead. She decided to help by making him a scarf from leftover cloth, showing him how to wrap it around snugly, showing him how to wrap it snugly around his neck to stay warm. In turn, Sarah taught Samoset how to make a simple Sarah taught Samoset how to make simple items from cloth and scraps and brought I am so sorry. Miss Smith can't read. It is late. In turn, Sarah taught Samoset how to make simple items from the cloth of scraps she brought along, like small pouches he could use to carry herbs and stone. She also taught him a few words in English, showing him how to write his name on a piece of paper. Over the weeks, they met frequently, sharing bits of their lives and building a bond. Samoset taught Sarah to catch fish and paddle the machine, while Sarah showed him more about keeping warm in the cooler months. Slowly, they learned not only about each other's cultures, but also about friendship, realizing that their lives, though different, could make each other's better. As autumn turned to winter, they promised to stay friends, teaching each other's families and friends about the world they had discovered through each other's eyes. So, what do you guys think? Because, like, we, in that first paragraph, and even last week's passage, talked about how the Wampanoag had lived in what we now call America for hundreds of years, long before the Pilgrims had ever arrived, and they never needed a scarf. But now all of a sudden, Sarah's like, wait, you don't, you totally need a scarf, buddy. Did he really need a scarf, or was that Sarah saying, I use a scarf, my brother uses a scarf? What do you think? Maybe he didn't need a scarf, but do you think Samoset was appreciative of it? Maybe they hadn't used a scarf ever before, but now, ooh, I like this. I think I shall keep it. So just because they hadn't used it before doesn't mean they weren't appreciative of it. Because in that last sentence, As autumn turned to winter, they promised to stay friends, teaching each other's family and friends about the world they had discovered through each other's eyes. They learned a lot from each other. And as they learned from each other, they learned that there was a lot of things in their world that they could carry. They learned that there's a lot from each other they could carry into their world. So, what are you doing? The first thing you are going to do is you're going to answer the vocabulary. You're going to answer the clapboard question. Now that we've read Wampanoags and Pilgrims, Life Before the First Thanksgiving, and Together as Friends, Samoset and Sarah, what words or images come to mind when you think about the vocabulary words from the story? Missoon, Wetu, Pilgrims, and Native Americans. Share any words or phrases that pop into your head when you hear those words. So what words or phrases pop into your head when you hear any of those words? So when you hear the words Missoon, Wetu, Pilgrim, and Native Americans, what comes to your mind? Put your answer in the clapboard. And then your activity. Use the Venn diagram to compare how the same vocabulary words were used in Wampanoag and Pilgrims, Life Before the First Thanksgiving, and Together as Friends, Samoset and Sarah. If you need to go back and look at both passages to find text evidence to prove your answer, click on the blue triangle right here so that you can complete that. Remember, with a Venn diagram, the outer circles, how they were used differently. The inner circles, how they were used the same. So think about those 4 vocabulary words. Native American, Missoon, Wetu, and Pilgrims. How are they used differently and how are they used the same? And once again, we will go over that during your warm-up tomorrow. Today, you are going to be working on your informative writing draft A. Tomorrow, informative writing draft B. Wednesday, big idea mini project. And Thursday, multiple meaning words. And then Friday, myths. Love you all. Hasta la pasta. Bye.